All right, guys, today we got a little bit of a rant to go on. The reason why is because this CVC, I'm doing no points. Just Knock is going for the 5 million CVC badge. Early congrats to him, but I'm just going to be chilling the CVC as well as everybody else in the clan, basically. But either way, we're going to be talking about the relics and how I believe that these are going to significantly reduce the fun in Raid, especially in competitive areas, most specifically PvP. Now, before we get into the negatives, I want to talk about the positives. I do think the relic system is awesome. I think it adds a depth to champions that we didn't have before, and creativity in builds, plus an extra chunk of stats. I think that part's great. However, what I think is extremely dangerous and potentially going to make Raid a completely different game in a year from now, and not for the better, it's going to be much worse, is the fact that they're releasing relics at a relatively fast pace. Now, the clan group ones aren't really released. You got to be a high-level clan to get this, and literally no clan's going to get this for a very long time in the future. So those are kind of irrelevant to even consider right now. But when we just look at the event relics, they're fine so far. The Chimera group has a few with massive issues, and the standard group also has some that I think are very overpowered, one that's already been fixed, and who knows what these two are going to bring. But the main focus today, and the one that's kind of spurring this video on, is the interactions between Chrono Cube and Ally Attack Champion. So I have a video here from Final Kenpachi, which this was 15 days ago, I believe it was. So 15 days ago, guys, this has been a known issue, and Plarium's done nothing to fix it. If you have bugs, that's one thing. If you have bugs that are not fixed, it's a completely different thing. This bug is going to be affecting Siege, Live Arena, Classic Arena, and Tag Team Arena. And the more players who get the Chrono Cube, the worse this is going to become. So check out what's happening here. Also, subscribe and check out Final Kenpachi's channel, does some Twitch content as well as YouTube. But we have Queen of Hearts right here. This was actually, I think, showcased by Scratch a while back as well. So once again, Plarium didn't fix it then. But with Mikage, wasn't as big of a deal. With Queen of Hearts, it's a lot different of a story. Queen of Hearts does an ally attack here, gets 4 or 5 extra turns, basically for every champion on the team, and then goes into an extra turn. So she goes into another turn here, extra turn proc. What's going on here? The only extra turn mechanic in her kit is her passive. That's if the enemy does some buffs, but as you can see here, Final Kenpachi's just chilling. He ain't doing nothing, and Queen of Hearts is just soloing the entire show. She's taking all the turns for everybody. And I've heard of players getting soloed by Queen of Hearts, basically doing the ally attack into a strip plus death brand, into some other skills, and then an ally attack, and then just cycling it through and wiping an entire team because Chrono Cube is broken. Nowhere in Chrono Cube does it say spam extra turns on ally attack champions. It actually says wearer has a 50% chance to take 2 turns in a row. If this effect activates, wearer skips the next turn. That's not a big deal. That's a pretty niche ability. It's awesome on some champions, but it's not going to be something you would use on everybody. However, if you got an ally attack champion and this is broken, that is the relic you use. So this is broken. Broken, not a huge issue. Not being fixed is a massive problem, especially considering Stormcaller, Volcardiac Heart, Hollowed Hilt. These ones likely haven't been tested very, very thoroughly, considering nobody's really gotten any mythical relics yet. But players who've been doing Chimera at a pretty high level are coming up on their first, or maybe even already done their first, mythical, full, all mythical fragment forging, all mythical fragment relic forging thing. So we're going to have a lot more mythical relics being dumped into the game. So who knows what other kind of bugs are about to come across. Now, that is the bug system, the bugs of these relics. The Chrono Cube's bugged, Diadem of Death used to be bugged. If we come over here and take a look at some players in Chimera Clash, this player specifically, we have 2.14 billion damage. Tons of players took advantage of this bug. Not a big deal because Plarium already knew about it, but that was on the test server. When it came to live servers, they still hadn't fixed it. It messed up Chimera for a few rotations. Clans got way off in the matchmaking, and it was kind of just a disaster, but they did fix that. Now, it took a while. It took a while to fix it. We also had some issues with, I believe, one other relic. Which relic was it? So the aspect of Searoth. This was kind of bugged on Marius. He was not reducing his turn meter, but was reducing the damage. So that was fixed. He does reduce his turn meter now, I do believe, with that relic, so that's a little bit better. But those are the bugs with relics. And the fact that they're being released with bugs and the bugs are going so long without being fixed is going to make the game much worse just in that aspect. And with future relics, I think we can all assume they're probably going to have some bugs eventually on some interactions that also won't be fixed very quickly. But even if relics don't have bugs, we're looking at the next layer. The next layer is going to be relics like Aspect of Siroth, relics like Wand of Submission. Those two specifically, I believe, are going to become an absolute nightmare in anything related to PvP. Siege, Classic, 3v3. If 3v3 wasn't enough of a headache going from Silver 4 to Gold 1, it's about to become much worse. So as players get these two specific relics, things are going to get rough. Aspect of Siroth, the biggest issue with this isn't the effect. I think the effect's fine. I think it's cool. I think it's an awesome thing to have. The biggest issue with this, in my opinion, is the fact that there's no marker and there's really no way to know that it even activated unless you're just really paying close attention. Champions like He-Man, really strong, hard-hitting A2 skill that if you sync it into a Marius, who is the champion who most often has Aspect of Siroth on them, then he's going to take no damage and reduce his turn meter. If you notice that, awesome. You know he has it. You can be careful with future attacks. If you don't notice it, well, then you're just wondering why He-Man didn't do any damage. Was it a reaction proc? Who really knows? So I think some kind of marker for the Aspect of Siroth, or at least a marker notifying that it actually procced, would be incredible. Because right now, this is kind of difficult to tell where it is or what's going on, and it makes a lot of players wonder, why did my champion just do no damage? The next relic that I think is going to be a nightmare, even more than Polymorph was, is the Wand of Submission. So Polymorph plus Wand of Submission is basically guaranteeing that I have a higher chance to control the enemy or reflect something back to them than they do to control me. Think about this. The base version of this has a 25% chance to reflect Stun, Sleep, Fear, True Fear, Freeze, Provoke, Petrification, and Sheep back to the producer. We look at the levels. If you were to get it all the way taken up, it's going to be an extra 25% chance, but let's say you do it just to the extra 15, so 5, 10, 15. That's going to be an extra 40% chance to reflect, or a total of 40% chance to reflect one of these crowd control debuffs back to the producer. Now, if we take that and stack it on top of Polymorph at 6-star specifically, no accuracy required, it's going to be a 20% chance for Polymorph. Now, I don't know exactly how you would go about doing this math, if it's multiplicative or just additive between Polymorph plus the Wand of Submission, but either way, you're going to have a very high chance of making the enemy take their own control versus you taking it. And then if you go to a champion like Marichka and you say, okay, we're going to throw on Fearsome Presence. I don't think this works with the wand. It may. I may actually ask Plarium about that, but this is going to increase the chance of placing sheep by 5%. So now you have a 40% chance to reflect the stuff from the Wand of Submission, and then you have a 25% chance at a 6-star Polymorph to polymorph the enemy from any debuff. So those two things right there isn't even accounting for just the permanent 3% chance the enemy is just going to basically get resisted when trying to play stuff on me, or I'm going to get resisted when trying to play stuff on the enemy. It becomes an RNG fiesta, basically. And then when you expand this to now, instead of one champion having the Wand of Submission, we have 3 champions with the Wand of Submission, then it's going to become even more insane. Just like players all swap to Polymorph, if you have multiple Wands of Submission on a team, Armand's all of a sudden becomes not much of an issue because he's basically going to be guaranteed to get crowd controlled because you have so many chances for it to just be reflected back to him, which in some situations could be good. I think the Relic is a very interesting idea. I don't think it should just be scrapped and just forgotten about. I do think, however, that it probably deserves a cooldown on the skill. It may not be a huge deal, even a 1-turn cooldown. If it activates, give it a cooldown for 1 turn. Make it noticeable as, hey, this champion is the one who has Wand of Submission. Maybe don't try to put a sheep on them. Maybe don't try to stun them. Give me a heads up. And if I want to take that risk, well, I go ahead and go for it. But not having any clue that the enemy has Wand of Submission and that I can just constantly have my stuff reflected back to me is, I just don't think, a good way to play the game. And knowing that so many players are going to have more Wand of Submissions. I was actually watching MTG Jedi's video earlier today, and I noticed that he had several Wand of Submissions, which is awesome. Use them. I use mine. I got mine on Sigfriend. It's an amazing, amazing relic, but I think it's a little too crazy. I think it's too broken. And I think this is stuff that doesn't necessarily make the game more fun, but more frustrating. Polymorph doesn't make the game more fun. It makes the game more frustrating. If they removed Polymorph, players who got 6-star souls would hate it. But I think in general, there would be, actually, I don't even think this, I know this, there would be far less RNG in fights. Some things would change up, and you could actually use debuffs. You could use this stuff. But now, the game is moving more and more towards, hey, don't control the enemy, don't use debuffs, and that's how you're going to play the game. I don't really like the way that's headed, honestly. A lot of the relics are okay. Like relics like Arethi Coronet, this makes Trunda basically take some steroids and become a beast. I mean, she already is not skipping leg day, but now she is jacked out of her mind because the results I was getting, I believe, with Cat's Gaze, or maybe the Talon, I forget which one I was using. I was doing like 40 million damage on the splash from Trunda's A2, where I put the Arethi Coronet on her, and I was pushing more like 70 million damage from the splash. It makes a big difference on champions like that you would have Nature's Wrath on. If a champion's going to wear Nature's Wrath, they can wear the Arethi Coronet and get just as much benefit from it. Now, the Coronet versus the Cat's Gaze may differ between different champions, but for Trunda, the Coronet is just extremely, extremely good. That stuff I'm okay with. Relics that are relatively accessible, you do Chimera enough, you're going to get these relics. Those are cool. Journal of Necrotos. This is a really good rare relic. Probably one of the best rare relics. It's awesome. Having the event relics. Like, this is a really good relic. This is not broken anywhere that I know. It gives you a big boost to your damage dealer. It's overall solid. The Hatter's Reserve isn't as great. It's not used as much. It has a few champions it's good on, but in general, it's not that big of a deal. But when you start looking at some of these relics that are literally broken, like just not working correctly and making the game less enjoyable for other players, that's where things start to get bad. Chrono Cube, I'd honestly say Wand of Submission is up there as well. I'd say it's one that probably needs a relook and reconsideration of, is this really necessary to have a 50% chance to reflect crowd control debuffs back to the producer? I mean, check this out, okay? Wand of Submission has 2 circles and one, what is this, a square, a diamond? What is that gemstone called? I don't know my shapes. A diamond, okay. It's a square turned to the side, but a diamond gemstone. So 2 circles. We go down here to, where's the circles at? Okay, bolstered defense. Ignore defense effects are 12% less effective against the wearer. Take 2 of those, put them in the slot. And then go to the diamond one. And let's see, what are we going to use here? Honestly, it probably doesn't even matter. The wearer reduces incoming damage by 10% for each dead ally. Let's throw that on there as well. So this, we have all mythical relics. This plus these 2. Take that relic, throw it on an already extremely overpowered champion and nice, and now all of a sudden you have a champion who is reducing the effectiveness of ignore defense effects, who is going to reflect your crowd control effects back to you, which is one of the most, actually the only way to actually kill a Nice is to just control him, but now he has a chance to reflect that. And then you also throw on the blessing that whenever he is controlled, he's going to have a chance to just remove it, which is the Chainbreaker, I believe, is what's pretty popularly used on him. 25% chance of removing debuffs, 40% chance of filling this turn meter, about 20% when hit. So basically, you take a champion who's already crazy, you throw in a Wand of Submission, he doesn't need extra damage, he's doing crazy damage anyways, and then he's going to be extremely tanky, extremely frustrating, can't be controlled, and you have no answer to deal with this. Now, you have no answer to deal with this yet. I was talking in my clan chat yesterday, and something struck me. You know, you can create the problem and sell the solution. People have talked about a Void Mythical Champion coming, and what better than to have a Void Mythical Champion who does something similar to what Carnage does with the seal, which is what blocks effects from sets, basically, but have a seal for relics. So a Void Mythical Champion who can't be sheeped and blocks the sets, the relic effects. That would be a pretty crazy champion. That would be an example of creating the problem, selling the solution. Now that may be a little bit too pessimistic on Plarium's side. Hopefully they don't actually do that. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a champion who had a seal equivalent, but for relics. That could definitely be very viable, and that'd be a champion who I would like to have. I mean, just imagine shutting down the aspect of Seeroth, or shutting down the Wand of Submission, assuming it's not going to reflect that stuff back to me, or shutting down any of these relics that are going to be even more insane in the future. That could be very cool. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But basically, these relics do need a look at, and I think a lot of tweaks, but faster. So the rate of tweaks on the relics currently is terribly slow. We have literally game-breaking relics that are causing teams to win that maybe they should have won, maybe they shouldn't have won, but they definitely shouldn't have gotten one champion soloing the entire other team, because the Chrono Cube is giving 5 extra turns for the last month almost. Either way, guys, it's ultimately just a little bit crazy, and I think relics, if left in this current situation, are going to make Raid far less enjoyable looking down the road, even less than a year from now, even 3-4 months from now, when players are getting more and more of these relics. It's just going to become much less enjoyable. I know if you're somebody who plays live arena actively, you've probably been hit with a wand of submission. You go to do a control effect, now all of a sudden you're stunned. Now all of a sudden you're sheeped or polymorphed or whatever it may be. Well, sheep and polymorph are the same thing, but feared or polymorphed or frozen, all that kind of stuff. RNG is becoming so crazy in the game that it's basically just a roll of the dice. Even if you have good champions and a good team, are you going to be able to do anything? Are your effects from your champion going to be shut down from a polymorph? Are they going to be shut down from a random CC being thrown out there? Who know? Is your massive hit going to be shut down by aspect of Sephiroth? Which is, I mean, that's different. That's okay in my opinion, if you kind of know at least where it is or where it was when you actually hit the champion. Have a different marker other than just the turn meter decreasing and your damage not showing up. Because a lot of players don't know what's going on with this. They just don't know the relics, and they don't know, hey, why did my He-Man or my Rotos just do 0 damage? Or why did my Siegfried with his massive A2 skill do nothing, or A3 skill do nothing? This massive sword feels very bad when it hits into aspect of Sephiroth, which I've learned to just not hit enemy Mariuses, because that's usually where it is. But guys, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions. What do you guys think about this kind of stuff? Do you think relics are fine? Are you enjoying them? Do you think they need to be changed? Or are they not really any different for you whatsoever? I don't doubt whatsoever that we're about to see even crazier things happen as players start to get more and more mythical relics. The Chrono Cube's going to be more popular because people are for sure going to get it. And the Storm Collar may have some bugs pop out as well. Maybe it needs to be changed to the Bug Collar. I wouldn't be surprised. We just need some good bug killers to come in here and fix these issues before they last too long. They fix plenty of issues very quickly when they benefit us. This isn't really benefiting or anything. This is just, this is just affecting players negatively. That's really all there is to it. Making players lose things they shouldn't. Either way, guys, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you know of any other relic that's broken. But other than that, check me out on the stream. I'll be live in probably about an hour or so after this video goes live. And I'll catch you over there doing my Chimera stuff, trying to get some of these broken relics. Either way, guys, thank you all again, and I'll catch you later.